Beloved consorts of the divine radiance, children of the sun, illustrious lords of light and love, devoted to the expansion of man's eternal domain. As I come to you tonight, it is to bring to your attention that we have been given a boon for and on behalf of this conference and the conferees. This boon is the conveyance of special grace from the very heart of the grand Son of this system of worlds, from the heart of Helios and Vesta. And therefore, this precise moment, while I am addressing you, the beloved angelic host, are fixing in place in the atmosphere of the room, approximately 15 feet above your head, what is known as the globe of Helios. The purpose of this gift is to break through the cave of material substance which the brothers of the shadow had thought to weave around this place to contain the light of the masters and prevent it from contacting every living soul upon the planet, as was our intention to do. I am assured by the karmic lords that when the spark of infinite illumination is released in the midst of Helios globe this night, as it shall be done, that at that moment every life stream upon this planet shall vibrate, either knowingly or unknowingly, with the chords of universal love from the heart of mighty Helios. The purpose of this magnificent gift and grace to the conference and to the purposes of the brotherhood is to assist recalcitrant men, those who live in an atmosphere of sheer cement, in shattering their personal illusions and perceiving for the first time that magnificent luminosity of the divine presence that beats and sustains their heart. I recall quite well how that before this conference was convoked at a meeting of the Darjeeling Council, the statement was made that conditions do not seem to be getting particularly any better upon earth. And your beloved Moria sprang up from his chair and with grave courtesy addressed us and said, "Yes, but they will. They certainly will." It was as though this Lord of love and advocate of the will of God found it necessary to also become an advocate for men. The luminous impact of the Lord of the first rays, proposal, and act of faith on behalf of mankind generated in the entire council a feeling of great hope for mankind. We decided then not to particularly take the temperature of the human race, but instead to apprise ourselves of man's potential and to hold that magnificent far-flung attitude that could manifest at any time, actively in our mind, not as great concern, but as great hope for the planet. And this we have done. And born out of that has been the secret desire of every master in the entire brotherhood to contact every life stream upon the planet. It was pointed out that many individuals have stood in their own light. And because of that, the long shadows of confusion and misunderstanding have loomed before them upon the pathway. It was pointed out that this was not the intention of God, nor even the intention of the individuals, for many of them lovingly long in their hearts to see Christ brotherhood manifest upon the planet. There are indeed then many delightful souls upon this planet, souls of great nobility, souls of great hope, souls that keep on keeping on year after year in doing the will of God according to the limits of their understanding and their capacity to do. And I do not think that we should then classify the entire earth as being a decadent society, but should recognize that the redeeming factors in society are these alchemists of the Spirit who have the regenerative sense and are charged with the consciousness of God's success for the planet. These individuals are determined that they are not going to let outer appearances control their thought power and their hopes for and on behalf of mankind. And we are encouraged by the passions that surge from time to time within their hearts and minds. And I want you to know that when you permit divine power to move from the poles of your mind out into space, into hollow space, it enables us to function through you, to live in you, even as many young people today, making an idol of some individual famous to the public eye, feel that in the life of this individual they live. This vicarious sense, this sense of living in the successes of others and contributing by being a rooting section for the idol of their heart, when applied to the ascended masters, is a means of establishing contact with us, a means of entering into communion with us. For we do not look upon the misshapen concepts that men hold, but upon the intents of their heart. This we have learned from our divine and heavenly Father. We have learned from reading the archives of the great masters of systems of worlds, now dead to the memory of the race, because these I reference pertain to records of Akasha so old as to not even involve this million-year cycle. But we are a bit antiquated in some of the measurements we take. And from time to time, we do peruse very old, very ancient records. And those of you who are interested in these antiquities would perhaps be pleasurably impressed if we tell you that we are often inspired by man's victories over the vicissitudes of life in past ages, and that seeing that men have overcome worse conditions than that which many individuals face, and I reference the personal level, in the past, there is great hope that you will overcome today. But this will not be done simply by wishful thinking. It will not come about because you desire it alone. It must be invoked, it must be planned for, it must be accepted. And the power of regenerative faith within yourself must be amplified by ascended master love. We find in the records of the past that many of us who ourselves won our victory in the past did so by attunement with those who had gone on before, who had mastered outer conditions, who had been subjected to self-same pressures, who had overcome them, who had held steadfast contact in faith with the invisible world, invisible to the masses, and summoned through that faith the records, the energy, the momentums, and the power of overcoming victory. This is the will of God for the age. The will of God is not involved in someone else being able to take another through the door. Each man for himself then must carve his destiny evermore and be an overcomer of the conditions of the world. But in full cognizance of the mounting problems and pressures of this age, we say to those of you whose concerns have become a burden to their heart, let not your hearts be troubled by outer conditions and circumstances, for the troubling of your hearts will in no wise become the means to a solution. Rather, we advocate a greater measure of attunement with the dominating power of the universe, your divine source. The words, "In God we trust," inscribed upon the coins of the realm, must be inscribed in your hearts. These words come from ancient desire record. For in all past ages of triumph, attunement with the source, consciousness of the source, awareness of the source, devotion of the source, and the pressure of recognition of the glimmers of reality that appear through the apertures of men's consciousness have ever been the means whereby individuals have raised themselves literally by their own bootstraps. And now they tell me that that beautiful globe is ready to release its energy. Of course, some of you may have expected a dramatic moment. Well, right now in the middle of that sentence it all happened. And some of you did not even know it. Others were aware of it. But we are going to mount an increasing pressure upon the flame of Helios within the globe. And as I proceed to address you, we will literally melt the walls of blackened substance which the black magicians on this planet have sought to erect around the conference out of fear for themselves and their ruthless aims. Individuals may wonder just why these individuals, these brothers of the shadow, who have taken the left-handed path, could desire to practice such nefarious conduct toward mankind. Well, blessed ones, if they assisted the forces of light, what do you think would happen? If they actually entered into a compact with the eternal to serve in the freeing of this age and removed all of their resistance from the world would then crumble and mankind would awaken, because it is the negative pressure constantly kept up that actually robs the planet of its understanding, of its sanity, of its means to freedom. Therefore, you see, they are not going to do that because they have already forfeited their right to life by cutting themselves off from the divine presence and becoming vampire activities, living on the light of other men and stealing misqualified substance. They cannot steal substance properly qualified, for that belongs to the Godhead. But when individuals carelessly use energy in hate processes, in processes of wrong thoughts, in fear thoughts, in doubt thoughts, in distrust, or in any negative condition, then at that instantaneous moment they become subject to the vampiring activity of the dark forces of the planet, unless they are vigilant, unless they keep their tube of light closely around themselves, unless they hold the harmony, unless they preserve their energy within their own force field by deliberate intent, by invocation of the Master's protection, by Archangel Michael's love ray, and by calls to beloved mighty Austria. Such ordinations are the protection of men. But if they do not do it, anyone in a careless, unguarded moment can become the loser. And as Jesus said long ago, I feel that virtue has gone out of me. In this case, it will be the virtue losses incurred by the vampire activities, which, as they steal the light of the children of the light, enables the dark forces to continue to exist independent of the Godhead. A vampire creation, a creation that can be called a tramp creation, whose sole interest in being is to survive. What a pity that they did not recognize that the right-handed path to God would have given them immortality. What a pity that they felt the need to become rebels against universal principle, simply because they felt the need to become captains over men, rulers over subjects, without the understanding of the pressures of the nobility. In this connection, I want to now digress for a moment and call to your attention the subject of all men being created equal. For this subject has been much abused. Surely mankind in saner moments realize that all men are not now equal. They are not equal in intelligence, in attunement, in beauty, in the power to perceive beauty, in diligence, in physical strength, in spiritual strength. They are very unequal. And this is apparent if you stand in the marketplaces, as Jesus and others of the great masters have done from time to time, and gazed upon the faces and countenances of the passing people. Individuals are much more aware of their inequalities than you may think. And people are wiser by far than they think, than others think. And I tell you, they are also far more ignorant than they think. And if this seem a strange statement, a little thought on your part will dig the meat of it out. And you will understand why the light and the light processes seek to illumine mankind. As I come to you then tonight, aware of the mounting pressure in the family of nations and the human struggle, and aware of all these manifold facets of mortal existence, it is in the fond hope that among you there are individuals who will perceptively understand what I am speaking about, who will grasp the principles, and in grasping those principles, cut themselves free from the idea that they cannot move forward in the light and make progress. The inequalities then of men in manifestation show forth the needs for all to make progress. None should stand still. None should have a sense of frustration. And so, with the incoming of ascended Master Light and Love, with the incoming of ascended Master Hope, there is a change in the consciousness of the individual. And the individual says unto himself, I can move forward in the light. Why, of course I can. The dark forces of the world will not impede my progress. The negatives of my consciousness, of my subconscious mind, will not impede my progress any further. because I am going to create a law in my being by drawing forth the universal laws from the archives of the divine. Surely God has provided a rule of escape from all of these negative conditions that I have in ignorance created. And therefore individuals with that God determination enter into a new state of consciousness and a new state of determination, and they draw forth the power ray. And when the blue ray of infinite power comes forth and the God determination is made, they say, I am the presence of life, dissolving all the complexities of my consciousness, entering into every significant part of subconscious manifestation, and shaking up the contents thereof, and removing the dust and debris and confusion, and setting my inner house in order. And with that resolve, a change comes over the individual, and a realization that each day becomes one in which the soul can bathe to subconscious levels in the never-failing light of God. And to what purpose? To the purpose of overcoming, of course, to the purpose of manifesting and exhibiting Christ-like qualities in the world now, because the world has need of these qualities, because the individual has need of these qualities. Oh, yes, individuals want so badly to be able to heal other life streams. But let them also understand that the greatest healing that can be performed is the healing of the soul. The greatest power, then, that can be released is the power of transmutation, the power of change. For when individuals change and enter into new areas of universal reality, their inner being is stimulated and their seeing is expanded. They see farther and they enjoy more. And this is the purpose of God, a divine practicality. We are not concerned with regurgitating old ills. We are concerned with rectifying those ills on a permanent basis. There is no need to constantly take out the negative conditions of your world and examine them and see as to whether or not they are there. I assure you that because they are negative, every time that your mind gravitates or turns to a negative concept, it will quite naturally pull out the old snapshots, the old albums of man's recalcitrance and failures, and present them for full display to your trembling consciousness. And what a pity it is that individuals feel this need. We would like then to have you here highly resolved that whenever this shall occur in the future, you will say, I am the unfailing light of God, dissolving all that substance, all that picturization of negativity, all that hopeless outer condition, all that feeling of fear about the conditions of the world. And I am the presence of life, going out into the world and carrying the divine order of the golden lily, the perfection of beloved Helios and Vesta into the world. I am vesting my soul and accepting the vestments of heaven that are given to me with every universal quality of perfection. I refuse to accept less than Christ's perfection for myself. I will not continue to function in those levels of insincerity which are truly sinful. I will function now in levels of Christ's sincerity. And this is the evocation, the invocation, and the consecration of all of my energy on behalf of cosmic purpose, knowing that as I convey myself into the pressure of the divine will, as I submit to the hands of God as molding factors in my being, I shall only be shaped little by little, each day more in the divine image. And so the sense of progress, whether little or great, is there. And it is out of this sense that light is born. And now we say the light is being truly stepped up And the energy waves are pulsating out from Los Angeles. And the angelic host are descending in great circular bands down into the atmosphere of the room. And as they come in and surround this globe of Helios, they are all carrying light substance from the sun of this system of worlds, and they are carrying the love of Vesta, the cosmic mother, worshipped of old, of course, by the ancient Romans. In their lack of understanding, men thought that it was a pantheistic action, as Christianity in retrospect gazed back upon Roman history. And of course, perhaps it was, for even the fable of Romulus and Remus had certain meaning, the city being nourished upon the paps of the wolf. But let us then call to your attention that for many, many years the Roman Empire did spread across the face of the earth and waxed very great indeed. Yet, in the time of the Christ, was not the Holy Land also a protectorate of Rome? And did not Roman legions collect the taxes in the kingdom? Did not men pay tribute unto Caesar? What then was the basis of the fall of ancient Rome? Was it the same factors that created the awful eruption of Vesuvius and destroyed Pompeii? Yes, in a different way. For the Roman Empire dissolved because its ties were in the hearts of its rulers and the extension of their energies out through the ruling order. When men became imbued with a material sense, and they sought to collect for themselves the tribute of the kingdom, when they were corrupted in immorality and dishonesty, when fear and torment entered into their being, and the personal equation became of greater interest than empire, empire crumbled. And the lessons of the destruction of ancient Rome should afford a lesson today to this nation and to all nations. For the power of national unity is always wedded to the hearts of the people, and no banner, no flag, no constitution or constitutional fervor can long be sustained or hold its power unless its power be endowed daily by the people of any great land. And therefore the power of America to wax strong, to overcome its problems, to assert its role in the world community as the cup of light to the world, dispensing those democratic principles that are to assure the freedom of every man to function according to cosmic autocratic principles, so that men and women will understand that cosmic destiny is given to them through the spirit that animates the frame, that cosmic destiny is dispensed in the laws of the land when the legislators and politicians of the land are tied to the sense of world good and of personal good to their nation. Integrity and honor and the cosmic honor flame must then be kept blazing through the heart of America. And as I speak to you tonight, we have asked the angels who created the first concept of the Liberty Bell, from which was cast your own national Liberty Bell, to ring out the peals of the cosmic Liberty Bell throughout this land by carrying the energy of the globe of Helios and the spirit of sun liberty into the world order. As the light rays go forth, connecting this room then with every heart in the world, everywhere. It is to bring the concept of universal destiny into men's consciousness. We shall stir them this night, whether they know or not that we exist. We shall stir them this night to feel the cosmic liberty bell, to hear its tone, to cognize the meaning of cosmic dignity, of individual freedom, of freedom to express, to become the leafy branches of the liberty tree that are for the healing of the nations. For long ago in Transylvania, we of the House of Rakazi exalted the banner of freedom in the world and pulsated into the atmosphere of the planet the flame of freedom. At the moment when that pulsation went forth, it provided the earth with an impetus that will never fail, that will never wane, that will always be kept alive by those who have forsworn themselves at inner levels to protect it. Your beloved Saint Germain has pledged his allegiance to the flame of freedom, for example, and for 2,000 years will sustain that momentum. Yet individuals sometimes, when asked to watch simply 1 hour with God, find this a difficult thing to do. When you see in yourself the waning of faculties, when you sense in yourself inadequacy, be grateful that you do, for it simply is a danger signal to the soul that saith unto everyone, you need more light, you need more light, you need more light. Well, where do you get this light, precious ones? Where indeed? From your source. And therefore, if you would only form the habit of doing as El Morya wrote long ago in that precious song, turn as the sunflower turns to her God when he sets, the same look which he turned when she rose. If men would only learn to do this consciously, through volens, the will, to consciously will to turn to their source, and then to say, oh, there may be veils between myself, my outer objectivity, and my source, but the flame of my aspiration and the flame of the ascended masters and the flame of Christ's truth and the flame of my desire will make itself felt in heaven. Do you know what it is then to tug upon the garments of the Lord? Do you know what it is to pull upon his robe, to touch the hem of his garment, the universal Lord of all? It means that you determine, as the woman did in the case of the unjust judge, that you will be heard in the courts of heaven. You determine that you have a just cause to plead. And if you determine that, precious ones, and say to yourself, well, I have a just cause to plead, and you recognize that in full faith, and you yourself then turn to your source and see that there is an obstruction there. And then when you meet that obstruction, you say, I don't seem to be getting any farther, for the heavens seem to be made of lead. This shows you that your energy is not going far enough, and you need more light. And then you turn to the God within, for God is both without and within. And this is sometimes overlooked by some who seem to feel that God is either all without or all within. Not so. God is everywhere, and the universal power of his energy need not pale from your consciousness if you will understand that the key to penetrate the veils can actually be drawn from within by increasing the flow that God has placed within the sensor apparatus of every cell, the centrosome of that cell being tied at inner levels to the universal sun system of all worlds. And so energy and solar flares can begin within the cells and within the heart itself. the sun center of man can come alive into vibrancy. And as it does so, there will occur the miracle of the flame burning away the veil. And as the veil falls and the flame itself provides new light for the individual, he will see a tunnel of love between himself and the heart of God. And he can go down that tunnel with the speed of light and transcend light years of perfection almost in the twinkling of an eye. And this is what is meant by man's being changed in the twinkling of an eye. It means that one day with God is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. And the timeless sense, once it is developed by an individual, enables him to penetrate through the shadow veils that hang between the outer court of man's personal self and the inner holy of holies, where his own inner being does ever behold the face of the Father in the great central sun. Jesus long ago explained this law, saying that no man should harm one of these little ones. For whosoever harms one of these little ones of mine, he said, it were better for him that a millstone were tied around his neck and he were cast into the sea. Men then can learn that acts directed against the ascended masters, acts directed against the plans of hierarchy, acts directed against children of the light are often far more weighty in their karmic effects than those which are directed against men in lesser states of consciousness. For once you take a stand for your presence, once you determine to become a part, either in the outer court or the inner court, of this invisible spiritual order of the great white brotherhood, I tell you that you have taken a step in the right direction. And if individuals feel that you are nothing to them and they desire to be disrespectful to you, you do not have to retaliate, blessed ones, to them. The power of God has long ago said, vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. And so God, who is love, who is also law, will function to return to the erring one the karmic hammer, bringing to their own doorstep their own failures and error sense, returning to them for redemption and providing them an opportunity of knowing their freedom by redeeming their karmic factors toward every life stream whom they harm. But those who harm the children of the sun have created a far more than ordinary karma. Some among mankind today are aware of this inwardly, for a great deal more of the law has been imparted to man in their inward parts than they are aware of outwardly. And even some of the fables and superstitions of the world, some of the ancient recordings called mythology, have universal cosmic backgrounds that are able to teach mankind today many of the great mysteries of God, providing they are tuned with properly under universal direction. We must, however, admonish the students to be very careful about all psychic activities whereby individuals seek to contact the spirits of the dead or departed from the world. It is all right, precious ones, to hold contact with those beloved ascended beings who have won their victory. But I call to the attention of everyone here that when the witch of Endor sought to bring up the spirit of Samuel, that it was indeed a violation of universal principle. And yet, for various cosmic reasons, God himself did permit the spirit of Samuel to come forth, who admonished Saul, who had turned to the witch of Endor for assistance because God would not answer him, in these words, tomorrow thou shalt be as I am amongst the dead. And it was so. And while those comfortless words were spoken to Saul, nevertheless, the witch of Endor herself was frightened, for she realized that she had indeed come in contact with the reality of the universal God. You then who are gathered here tonight surely are aware that throughout this conference you have come in contact with your own universal divine presence and the ascended masters whose energies and love for mankind are pouring out mighty light rays throughout the city, revivifying also the fountain of flame that was established here several years ago for the protection of Los Angeles and her people, in memory of ancient days when this was indeed a city of the angels, a place charged with universal love, where the power of the infinite love of God summoned forth true beauty in outer as well as inward expression. And oh, how we long once again to see the banner of freedom wave over this city and in the hearts of the faithful. Oh, how we long to see the spirit of Christ unity permeate the atmosphere of this city and remove those ingredients of negative accretion from the atmosphere, so that the purity of the luminous blue ray of God's divine will, together with the golden light of the sun of this system of worlds, could once again produce that marvelous manifestation of universal order which existed here long ago and seeks a revival in the hearts of men. But places, conditions, things, and outer expressions are not solely our interest. We are concerned with the magnifying in the hearts of the individual of their own individualized God flame. And if you will stop then and pause with me tonight to understand that each of you have that spirit spark of universal identity within yourself, which can be amplified this night and made to pulsate with the vibrancy of universal life, you will find an activity beginning now once again to revive itself within your heart and bring you into a sense of God passion for life. What does all that mean? The words that I speak, the ideas that I convey, are a revival of the divine sense of living. Yes, precious ones, and this is not merely a worded statement. It is a cosmic idea. For life is much more than men are able to become aware of in their outer self. And therefore, as they turn within to the great universal spark that is a part of the universal spirit, that is one with the universal presence, they will find that this seed of living flame can produce the miracle of the lightning flash of the universal flame through the aura of the outer self. Will you join me now then in seeking to effect a release of that cosmic flame from the cosmic egg that is within your heart, that is the spiritual spark? And may we say of it, yes, great oaks from these little acorns grow. And let us understand that a magnificent cosmic being can manifest right where you are. Why, you would not even know yourself in your former state if you were able to see the whole in retrospect. And so perhaps by a forward movement of thought, if you would project yourself into the future in thought and see yourself as a divine master, as one who had overcome outer conditions, as one who had mastered all states of mind, and the power to control emotions, and the power to hold sway with the courts of heaven, to influence the universal, you would be able to understand the meaning of friendship with God. We speak now not of a minimal aspect of friendship with God, but of the maximum aspect of friendship with God. Total identification is a genuine experience whereby the divine imparts himself to you, and you in return can do no less than impart yourself to God. Now, of course, the very idea and concept of God, 3 words, G-O-D, 3 letters, G-O-D. These very thoughts embodied in the idea of God are enormous if carried out by cosmic geometry. Of course, you are not dealing with outer conditions. This is not friendship with some individual. You are not the mayor's or the governor's friend, or a great writer's friend, or a great artist's friend. You are a friend of the grand architect of the universe. And out of this friendship is born a sense of your destiny and the power to perpetuate yourself in his service. One of the most wonderful things about the Ascended Master's realm is that we actually have a tremendously fast-moving realm. Our ideas are so much faster than yours that sometimes when we speak, individuals in the audience find that our words go completely over their head. So tonight, mindful of some of the dictations you have had, of the speed and flow, and of the difficulty that the messengers have had in trying to grasp these words as fast as they come, we have tempered ourselves a bit and created in place of a sustained burst of power a flow of our energy and our thoughts and our ideas in what we feel is perhaps a bit more comfortable a manner, so to speak, than a release of those enormous energies the Elohim, the archangels, and some of the masters have used. There are reasons, of course, why they use this enormous energy. There was a marvelous reason why your beloved Jesus spoke out so vitally last night to you here. For throughout the ages, the dark forces of the world have fostered upon mankind the idea of a meek and mild child, a meek and gentle Jesus, one whose eyes are truly meek and mild. But John the Revelator, who knew the Christ perhaps better during the time of his universal ministry in Palestine, writing in his revelations, saith of the Christ, his eyes are as a flame of fire. And we who heard him speak to the masses, we who were aware and assisted him in that great ministry, we who sustained him in many hours of peril, are aware of the vibrancy of his voice, of his celestial rebuke to the kingdoms of this world when he said, "Woe unto ye, ye generation of vipers!" This means a generation of snakes. He said, "Ye are of your father the devil. He was a murderer from the beginning and a liar." Jesus was tall, not only in physical stature, but in spirit. He stood tall among men and among the avatars sent to the earth. He had a resiliency. He had an enormous wave of power. His voice at times was extremely loud, at a time when microphones and amplifying systems were not in use. He was heard by more than 5,000 people clearly. His stature was great and his energy enormous. We would rather then have you understand the true picture of the living Christ than the picture that has falsely caused mankind to feel that only by gentleness and coddling can men express Christ's divinity. We have come, your beloved Moria has come, and the archangels have come, and the Elohim has come, down through the ages, and even in your time again and again, wielding great power and releasing in many cases shattering energy. This is because the density of the age requires it. And when we do, we bless and heal many of the beloved students who have been captivated by the gauze of materiality and taped by surgical adhesive tape until, like Lazarus of old, they are bound by grave cloths and scarcely able to see because of the density and opacity of the world's thought. When we come then with a flame of fire from our heart, and we determine to intensify our activity with a view to imparting freedom to individuals, this is, of course, a worthy aim, and one which we not only espouse, but in which we engage. I then tonight am determined that the world is going to feel the pressure of the hierarchy's thought that they should and ought to tap their own international resources and see to it that the power of Helios and Vesta, the power of Alpha and Omega, the power of the great central sun, the power of the grand Orient, the power of the first flush of the dawn, the aureole of hope, should go out into the world and send out the pulsations of those mighty light rays which we will. And therefore I say, let us now break and shatter those walls which have sought to seal the activity of light within them. Let us see that there is an activity of grand energy patterns released not only symbolically but tangibly into the world, into the thought patterns, into the feeling patterns, into the consciousness of every mankind upon this planet. Let babes in the cradle feel the impetus of the new age. If I am to take over a civilization in South America, a civilization of mighty light, and to restore the ancient realm of Cuzco, the ancient realm of Suva, the ancient power of Syria, if I am to assert now once again dominion in this continent and create temples of magnificent light, then it must be because individuals will accept that light and carry the torch wherever they go. Certainly by cosmic law, mankind here below cannot expect that they can dam the flow and hold it locked within their heart, a gift from God they do not impart unto the age that seeks in vain to ease the stain, the awful pain of separation and of shame. We come then not to accuse and not to blame, not to condemn or inflame with mortal passions of sense sin, but to give men the conveyance of our consciousness to win the affection of the gods. Your own beloved mighty I Am presence is the principle of the Father in expression. Your holy Christ self is the principle of the Son. And you, blessed ones, each one, are the children of the Son in the outer court of the temple, whom God has invited to a great feast, the feast of light upon the Corpus Christi, the Christ-iamity, the supreme order of the ages, the light of the inner temple, the power of the Zend Vesta, the power of Sensar, the power of Mu, and the power of Atlantis, the power of all of ages that are past in all of their grandeur and glory, come once again. Atla, proud queen of the waves, Poseid, Poseidonis, rising then again from out the sea as Neptune lifts his trident majestically and saith, fulfill now then your destiny, ye waves impart to human hearts the power of the light that engulfs mankind and readies him not for flight, but fight against the foe who raises haughty head and seeks to steal the light of men to make them then the living dead. We say, awake, the voice of the Son of God has summoned men to once again beneath the rod see the revelation from on high, from your God, the revelation of the promised land, as Moses led the children out through Sinai desert, not to pout or doubt, but to see and be a people living in the flame of freedom. So we say to every nation everywhere, summon now the elect by cosmic prayer, by cosmic effort, for I am there, and I am here, and I am everywhere, and I cast out fear of failure, What cost is it to you to try to mold and shape mankind by sacred fire from the sky? This is a flame that ends the densities of men. This is a flame that gives them resurrection once again, a resurging of the Christ in men, a wholeness that restores to outer realms the sweet serenity of higher realms, and leads all to the dawn beginning of the golden age. I am the power releasing the flame of Helios into the world, and as a giant candle kindling in the world, a new birth of freedom to all ages, and summoning the nations to an appraisal of their divine potential. So this seed flame from God by a divine director's heart goes forth now into the world domain. All nations shall tremble then, because he cometh forth upon a white horse. He cometh forth as the rider victorious. He cometh forth with the sword of the Spirit, the two-edged sword of the Word, to say, take not the name of the Lord thy God in vain. I am the Lord thy God. Be not hearers of the word alone, but doers of the word. Through the ages men have trifled with the law, and now they shall see that the law shall act with swiftness and with suddenness. Those who err and henceforth shall pour forth darkness unto men shall receive it tenfold once again, as in another time when sin was rampant in the age. And so we drew forth from old elder roots page the cure that helped men to be free, the lash of love, the chastening, pruning of the tree of life that healed the nations then. It comes forth now once again. Tenfold shall be the action of the law. And if men think I speak as lamb, then let them see the lion's paw. The Sphinx of old has held her mysteries not in vain. For pyramid, for square, has raised its triad once again. And mystic masonry, descending from the sun, does cleave in every heart the knowledge of the one. For God arises in the passions of the soul, and vanity cannot make men whole. They must be clothed with seamless garment of the sun, for naked then shall stand all others every one. And they shall see that judged they are by light, and fear shall never make men white, but only love for those who love our God, as God loves men, will demand the flame direction then that cuts them free from binding outer self and enters into heart of pure, victorious self. I am the great divine director. blessed fragments of purity from the heart of the eternal, passing then from sun center into blessed manifestation. How we welcome thy orderly progression through the concentric emanating spheres of reality. Purity, the broken universal body of purity, a fragment coming to every man, every woman, and every child. The mighty continents of the air releasing their energy and pouring that energy in minute portions to all, so that deep within the consciousness of each heart, that seed of flame, that is the blessed reality of purity, could be born anew and cherished by each life stream. I am come this day to remind you of the transcendental nature of yourself, to remind you of that fragmented purity, now tarnished by some whose luster has grown dim as a result of misappropriations of sense energy and misqualifications and human density. But it need not be, for the glimmer of the lightning of divine love from the heart of the infinite is resounding still, and the movements of the universal vocal cords have never ceased to emanate the word that in the beginning vibrated substance into a form of reality. Now we begin to summon from the hearts of men a response to that magnificent gift of God, the gift of purity, the pure slate on which no record had been inscribed, but only the tendency that states, as the twig is bent, so the child or tree is inclined to expand and shape its limbs. So by cosmic purity were ye framed, and the atoms and the cells and the minute portions of being were all framed by a wholesome thought from the mind of deity, lofty and captured by the artists of old, Titian and the Venetian master, and others, including your own beloved Paul. These captured that beauty in fragments minute and brought it forth into the world as statuary, as painting, as grandiose conception. And it remains today a wonder and delight to those who have yet lost the internal symbolism locked within its heart. But we seek to liberate men today into the purity that is in the universe and surges through the universe and floods the universe as an incoming tide exchanges the guard with the outgoing tide. For there is ebb and flow as active principle in life. There are moments of rest, even as there are moments of action. And all of you who understand the law correctly will perceive that in moments of rest there is a preparation for action, and in moments of action there is preparation for a rest that precedes a future action. And so we say to you today, as your hearts hunger to taste of the sacred Eucharist of infinite cosmic purity, realize that the messengers of God are the seven mighty Elohim, that the messengers of God are the seven beloved archangels and their divine complements, that the messengers of God are the ascended masters, that the messengers of God walk also in veils of flesh, and ye yourselves, each one, are intended, as are all men, to represent the noblest, the purest, the sweetest, the most blessed image that could ever be conceived by mind, or written by pen, or painted upon canvas, or created in the world of form, penciled by electronic light, and reborn moment by moment in the hearts of the angelic host and cosmic beings. For the world today is filled with this sense of fragmentation. The world today is filled at subtle inner levels with those magnificent patterns that are wielded by mighty cosmic forces that seek to bring into manifest expression in the world of form the beauty of the golden age, that seek to bring to man's consciousness an attunement with higher dimensions and spheres of beauty right while he walks below. For only by the conceptions of higher beauty can the world below be framed and gilded by the power that was spoken of by the Christ long ago upon the hills of Judea. Consider the lilies of the field. They toil not, neither do they spin. Yet I say unto you that Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like unto one of these. Consider then today, each one of you, each life stream in this place, the magnificence of your own divine image. Consider for a moment the unique garment that heaven has prepared for you. You consider in the shops of the world those outer garments and choose them with care. You consider the fashions of the passing times. We ask you today to consider those eternal garments which God has fashioned, tailored in heaven, and determinate in bringing into the consciousness of man that refreshment that comes from a dip in the pools of universal mercy. Men desire to bathe in the great baths of the world. They desire to bathe in those places of mortal generation, hopefully to obtain a renewal of the life energy that surges through their hearts, beating and sustaining it moment by moment. But we are concerned that each student shall now take a fresh new look at the patterns of the universal order that are created inviolate in the universe. These cannot be scratched by mortal concepts or altered by mortal feelings. These remain your immortal garments. You may draw them forth when you are ready. You may dally in the marts of the world. You may pass your time in the idleness of the mart. You may seek to be an idol yourself of the marts of the world. You may tread upon the boards of the world and parade yourselves, if you will, and seek the adoration of men. But those of you who understand the meaning of universal dignity will recognize that the infinite could never select out of the men that he created, out of the immortal image that he created, one and single him out as the select, as the elect, and deny to other parts of life those gifts and graces which he endowed the one with. For all are endowed by God with the self-same vestments of immortality. All are intended to wear garments of dominion. All are intended to assert themselves in the world order, to maintain then first order in the domain of self, and then by self-expression, the amplification of infinity in the finite world, to teach men how to walk with angels, with elementals, with ascended beings, to have friends that are ascended at the courts of heaven. I am the Elohim of purity. I stand for purity through the ages. I stand for eternal purity and its image. I stand for the eye magic, the flash of cosmic reality that endows men and sustains within them the concepts of the Holy Grail. I seek to imbue men with the fastness as well as the vastness of cosmic spheres. These are all around you, swirling immensities that engulf men in midstream as they are captured by the illusions of life. The power of God continues to function right within the same levels of consciousness, and they tap not, or select not, or tune not in with the powers of the infinite, but are swayed by finite ideals and by finite ideas. They are caught up in the illusion of self-consciousness. They are captured by the idea of an individual as the world teacher, and they do not understand the meaning of universal preeminence. They do not understand that throughout the ages, various individuals chosen by the hierarchy and the karmic board do issue forth into the world to create the sense of the grand adventure, to summon countless lives from among mankind to a universal purpose, to preserve the patterns of infinity for all ages, and to dress men as well as address them in their cosmic vestments. Why do I stress it? Because we are talking about garments of purity. We are talking about garments that can stand in the fiery furnace of trial. We are talking about garments that are immortal. We are talking about garments that have the power of the resurrection flame within the very threads themselves. For the center of each cosmic thread, attached as it is to the universal spinning wheel, the great golden dramatic wheel that turns from the heart of God and brings out the radiant Antakarana and pours it forth into the universe, gathers the universal fragments, even as the 12 baskets were taken up at that feast when the loaves and the fishes, blessed by the Master, were broken and imparted to the multitude. So then, whenever there is made a breakage or a fragmentation of a principle from the whole loaf, to all to whom is given is expected in return to receive those fragments that are not used, so that there be no waste made of universal substance, but a summoning up from the multitude of those elements of purity which they have not appropriated, although they were indeed appropriated by God. Awake, I say, in the name of God. When I speak, I expect individuals to hear me. I come to you for your salvation. I am here. I am a real being. I am not the figment of someone's imagination. Do you think then, precious ones, that it is fitting decorum for individuals to come into the places where we speak and consider that this is an ordinary activity? I tell you it is not. And the only result that comes when individuals persist in doing this is that they bring themselves to a worse state than they ought to bring themselves to. For they come here in order to receive the spirit of universal freedom, and they allow themselves to be captivated by those mortal thoughts and passions that identify them with the body and its levels of energy. We are speaking for your immortality. We are speaking for your salvation. We are speaking for your infinite freedom. Is any price too great, I ask you, to pay for that freedom, to pay for that immortality, to accept it, to understand it? Won't you please be seated? I am the Elohim of purity, and I come to you today in order to create a sustaining momentum of awareness concerning those universal endowments which God, with his mighty foreknowledge, has created for each and every one of you. When you gaze upon the face of a rosy-cheeked babe, when you see the surge of magnificent renewed energy pouring through that form which a moment before was seemingly lifeless, sustained only by the momentum of its mother's bloodstream, you are able then to recognize that the power of God to endow matter with the pneuma, with the living flow of the heart's light down through the Sushumna and into the radiant manifestation of man's silver cord. You recognize the inflow of the power of the Mahachohan, the power of the Holy Spirit, and those sustaining elements of universal principle, which are the joy of every cosmic being. For we bask in the living light of his presence. We are very much at all times a part of that presence. We could, if we would, for example, be here and be there, in the sense that while we would be in Los Angeles, we could merely by a thought find ourselves in a flash of lightning in Paris or Rome. But we sometimes choose to proceed along that leisurely pace as one of your airliners, or as a being in flight, if they could fly, flying across the margin of the world and enjoying the scenery which we see below. Yet of late years, because of the strange accumulations of human doubts and fear, the darkening clouds of materialism in the world's sky, the fact that the children and youth of the world have continually been instructed in a dialectical materialism and a epitome of human greed, does not in any way enable us to feel that we are now gazing upon terra as we did in ages gone by, when we were able to behold the immaculate concept not only from our octave and level of light, but also below as we beheld it above. For we recall those grand, glorious golden ages when your own beloved Saint Germain and others of the ascended host were rulers in the physical kingdom of the world, and the teachings as in Atlantis of old in the fullness of her glory and in ancient Mu made every man aware of his spiritual power and darkness and deceit, and the need to create. The lie did not exist in the world, but pure honesty of heart. And when men met one another, they were able to gaze at the light of the heart. They could see the threefold flame pulsing there and watch as it would expand its influence and rise up, spilling over from the cup of identity into the world of form, flooding the atmosphere with a renewal of universal love, light, and intelligence. This was an era of the God Self walking the earth below. And some of you carry in your finer bodies those subtle memories of those moments of universal purity when you were able to rise from the ground with the greatest of ease, as a bird, as a man on the flying trapeze. You soared through the air and went where you wanted to go. Those days should come again, don't you know? And they will, if men will only understand that the true power of infinite cosmic motion, the true power of universal locomotion, of individual motion, is captured in the flight of the soul. Right where I am, there ye are. Will you then, following the Christ in the regeneration, hitch your wagon to his star and understand the magic of believing and understanding? For when there went out of human life the faith that God planted there, because human sophistication and wit superseded it, I want you to know that what took place was a decay of the vital energies of the spirit in mortal affairs, a shrinking of the silver cord, a decreasing even of the tube of light, and a shortening of the lifespan of man. The days after the flood, the days when that decay set in, when the aborted forms were no more, and the freedom of those imprisoned spirits was then achieved, was a time of both rejoicing and pity from the hierarchical level, for the Elohim were called into the cosmic councils. We were invoked even by the archangels and those seven spirits of God which dance in the universal palm were convoked, and our energy was brought forth. And when I stood amongst those legions of light, and I was consulted as to what should occur, I said, let us once again enthrone the world in a concept of purity. For when they sunk into that oblivion of mortal stature, when they began to understand themselves as mortal beings, when they thought of themselves as a puny intellect in a limited form, they entered the realm of the confining world, and joy and purity were no more within them. And I said, let us rekindle in them the flame of purity. And many of those at that council turned to me with a look almost of pity at heavenly levels, and they said, you do not understand the degree of degradation to which this divine creation has sunk. And I said, oh, my beloved ones, I understand what you have said, but I will take my stand for purity, and I must adhere to it even as we all must, for we cannot in our great momentum of enthusiasm and assistance for mankind permit ourselves to be dragged down in any way. We must uphold the standards of the age, even as the ages roll, without producing the fruit that God intended to produce upon the loom of life. And thus many unfruitful ages passed, ages of darkness, shadow, and shame, ages of petulance and of blame, ages of confusion and of hate, ages of senseless human fate. But never in the consciousness of God or any of the ascended masters did any invasion occur, any recognition of those lesser states exist. We could not tolerate, we did not deviate. We remained holding the immaculate concept for every life stream below. And when individuals sought to magnetize for themselves the great God flame and to draw out from within their own individual hearts the precious flame of life that enabled them to spin a seamless garment for themselves, we rejoiced, and our smiles appeared upon their countenances. I tell you, blessed ones, those were moments of glory, for the world had waned in its expression of the divine image, but heaven had not, nor has it to this hour, nor will the hour ever come when the Elohim, or the cosmic beings, the archangels, the universal council of ascended masters, or the hierarchy of the great white brotherhood will ever lower its standards into mortal dimensions. We not only could not afford to do so, but we will not. And I tell you that if you will stand with me this day in a fervent determination to reverse the course of human history, to reverse the course of human energy within the force field of your own individual world, I will stand with you for the balance of this embodiment, and I will assist you according to my expression of universal law. May I ask that there be no whispering in this room or consort between mortal individuals. I am here, as I said before, for cosmic purposes, and I do not choose to have any outer disturbances, for if you persist in doing it, I will make a sudden exit, and the karma will be your own. I have winked at it for the moment, but I shall not continue to do so, for this is an activity of great light, and it is an activity that is fiercely dedicated to man's freedom. We cannot afford, then, to cater to human beings or to their concepts of us. We do not care what you think of this messenger. If you choose to think less of yourself than you should, we care, but we desire that you should understand that it would be the better part of wisdom to express a prayer to God if you do not fully understand all that I am doing for the greatness of the soul of God that is within you, to burst forth through those human bonds and express your own innate purity. Now, precious ones, is the hour of salvation. Tomorrow is not guaranteed to any individual, for tomorrow is the gift of God that lieth in your hands as life expression today. When you expand this light, and when you pray, when you recognize the power of purity to change your world and shape your destiny, it will mean a change in the world scene that all the world will appreciate. For the world is waiting for the sunrise of infinite love, the first flush of the dawn of purity in man's consciousness, the understanding that the old order changeth, that former things are passed away, that all things are new, as the cosmic breath of purity infuses through and through. A power of the light I am, a power to express, a power to adjust all wrongs, a power to redress, a power then to fabricate, to change the world that is into the truth that lives in him who loves and lives and is. Yesterday, today, and forever. The universal one appearing in many bodies, the central sun in lesser orbs, the universal truth that man absorbs, that acts then later to reform the energies of sun systems reborn within the finite heart. The engrams of other worlds do now by fire impart a mold of immortality and purity on each heart. I bow to the God flame within each of you, and I humbly ask your pardon for my intensity and devotion, which is my expression and love for God, for being, for your true being, for our true perception of the logos of life. I thank you.